Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome to the second of my Hidden Gems series, introducing you to films that you may not know or I think are underrated, and which I like very much and have given me a lot over the years. I'm going to kick off today with horror, and this film, Absentia. Now, this is the first independent film made by a director who's now gone very mainstream and very popular. He's called Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan is kind of like the sort of 2000s answer to John Carpenter. He makes solid, no-nonsense genre films, unpretentious genre films that sort of hit the mark. I think this film is genuinely scary, it's genuinely creepy, it's well acted. It's a strange kind of indie lo-fi film about a woman whose husband disappears and she comes to believe has been taken off by some kind of troll or some kind of weird creature in this underpass. It may not sound the greatest kind of movie, but actually it's not an exploitation film or a cheapo horror movie. It's actually a very intelligent drama that uses horror as its sort of footing. And when I saw it, I thought this guy's really got something. Then he made a film called Oculus, that they're advertising there, with Karen Gillan from Doctor Who, which I also thought was a really effective little movie. He's gone on to make lots of highly regarded mainstream horror films. He did The Haunting of Hill House on television. He did that thing about the Epsom haunting. So he's now kind of gone mainstream and he's very popular, but this was his first work, and it's well worth checking out. Talking of horror, this isn't really a horror film. It's more of an occult caper movie. I love this film. Now, it's not regarded as one of Roman Polanski's greatest films, but I would argue that after Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown, this is his silkiest, darkest, most enjoyable movie. It stars Johnny Depp as an antique bookseller who's hired by a rather nefarious guy to try and find this book, this ancient book, that if you read it properly and understand and decode it properly, it will give you access to the devil. So it's kind of like the Da Vinci Code, but for adults, for intelligent people. The thing that Polanski understands that the Da Vinci Code does not understand is that this essentially is kind of hokum. It's nonsense. So Polanski approaches it as a black comedy, as he did with Rosemary's Baby. And that makes the horror so much more effective because you're off your guard. Right? He's not presenting it as this kind of pompous, serious horror film. He's presented it as more of an entertainment. But actually, the true horror that Polanski understood very well, of course, because of his life, actually comes through more powerfully. And this builds to a very strange ending. Some people don't like the ending of this movie. It's a movie it's an ending that's haunted me for years. I think it's brilliant. And the way that sort of Johnny Depp shambles through the ninth gate, and then the screen lights up in flames, and the beautiful music by Wojciech Kilar. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly, the Polish composer, one of the best film composers of the last 30 or 40 years. His music for this film is superb and really underrated. I think this is a great movie. It's funny, it's sexy, it's got a genuine undercurrent of unease, which is what Polanski was so great at creating. And I wish it was more highly regarded. I read a critic once who said that this is the great millennial movie. It was made in 1996, 3 years before the turn of the millennium, and I kind of know what he means. Talking of films by well-known directors that have gone under the radar, A Hidden Life. Now this is the latest film by Terrence Malick. Do you remember Terrence Malick? Remember how highly regarded Terrence Malick was, the great director of all time? He was like the Pope of American directors, this mystical great, wasn't he? He made Badlands, Days of Heaven, The Thin Red Line, The New World, and everyone was in raptures. And then he made The Tree of Life with Brad Pitt, and his reputation just crashed and burned. Suddenly he was making these films that looked like sort of, perfume adverts with voiceovers going, "What is love? Where is humanity? Who are you?" and all this sort of stuff, with all these, shots, in the magic hour of people, running in slow motion and all this sort of stuff. And his reputation crashed and burned. Now there are a few of us, a happy few of us, who actually like this new Malik. In fact, I would go so far as to say, as I prefer the new Malik. I loved The Tree of Life. I I deliberately didn't watch it for ages because all these people at Cannes had been talking about it. And I thought, oh God, here we go. Talking about, raving about the new Malik, like, the disciples in front of the Messiah. So I didn't watch it for ages, but then everyone was talking about it, so I thought, I'll watch it and make up my own mind. And I was blown away by it. Because for me, what it meant was, this wasn't the collapse of a previously great director. It was a great director finally getting rid of the shackles of genre and being what he wanted to be. He'd found the form he'd always been working towards. This is the latest version of that form. And it's not his greatest film. It's based on a true story of an Austrian farmer who defied the Nazis. He refused to swear allegiance when he was called up by the Austrian army. He refused to swear allegiance to the Nazis, and he was put in prison and he was executed for it. And it's just about his act of defiance, which Malik presents as a kind of new Christ. And if you don't like the new Malik, you're not going to like this movie. It's full of, shots of the Austrian mountains and dusk and thunderstorms and nature. But I think, I like beauty. And I think the discovery of beauty is still one of the most important things in art. And I think the story is very affecting and powerful. And I think it shows a reality of life behind the German lines that you don't see in many other movies. And so I would say, give it a try. And again, on the same theme of a film by a major director that's not that well known, Les Dames de Bois de Boulogne by Robert Bresson. Now, this was Bresson's second film, or at least his second acknowledged film. He actually made a kind of slapstick comedy in the 30s, but no one talks about that. So this was his second film in 1945, before the sort of famous Bresson of Pickpocket and, Mouchette and Oh Hazard Balthazar, when his method had really, this method of diluting everything and bringing everything down, hadn't become so ossified in his style. Here he was still developing his style. And it's a love triangle film. This kind of wonderful harridan, this wonderful diva, finds that her husband in, high society Paris is attracted to a young prostitute. And so it's a sort of a very mannered film. But for me, it breaks new ground. It shows the new adulthood and the new modern cinema that will come after the war. This was made in 1945. And I think it's actually Bresson's best film. I think it's very powerful, it's very moving, and it's one of the very few films, I think, in cinema that really conveys the power of love. That old-fashioned theme. Did you ever really believe it when you read a novel or watched a film or looked at a painting? Well, here I did. I really did believe in the power of love and in the redemptive power of love and the forgiveness. And I think it's a very powerful movie and a very enjoyable film. And I kind of wish that Bresson had stayed at this level. Oh well. From the sublime to the ridiculous. Crumb. This is a documentary made by Terry Zwigoff, who made Ghost World and Bad Santa. Early in his career, he made this film about Robert Crumb, a famous underground subversive comics artist who made lots of comics about naughty schoolgirls and women being, well, I don't want to upset people with sort of misogyny, but Crumb's comics were not PC. In one part of this film, you see him laughing over his own comic strip where a girl is bonked so hard that her head falls off. That's the kind of thing you're looking at here. He was a subversive comics artist. He would never survive in today's neo-Puritan society, politically correct society. Zwigoff doesn't judge him, nor does he sort of makes a film that is as sort of subversive and as low down and as laid back as Crumb himself. And he shows Crumb and his brother. His brother is just as crazy as Crumb is himself. And the film is a kind of queasy watch, actually. You realise that both of these brothers are actually borderline insane in this kind of really dysfunctional family. This is a rare, genuinely subversive American film. It's very funny, it's kind of outrageous, and at times quite sad and almost despairing. I think it's a great film, and I wish more people would watch it. And if you're easily offended, stay away. But if you've got an open mind, it's a classic. Now I'm going to finish this video with another guilty pleasure. I have a fondness for April Fool's jokes. They used to do these all the time in Britain. There was a famous one in the 1960s when Panorama, a big league news programme on the BBC, did an article about spaghetti growing on trees, and people actually believed it. This was in the days before British people ate foreign cuisine. And every so often they used to do these these kind of spoofs. So there's a famous one in the 1990s called Ghost Watch, presented by Michael Parkinson, where they pretended to do this live broadcast from a house which was haunted. And slowly weird things start happening, and then eventually the whole TV studio falls apart. I mean, it was a drama, it was written, it was obvious it was a drama, but people actually believed it. Now, this is another one of these, and it's very little known. It's from the late 70s. It was done by an ITV regional news group, and it's called Alternative 3. It's so good. It's only about 50 minutes long. Try and find it if you can. And the premise of it is quite clever. Scientists have disappeared, and these journalists in the programme apparently discover a sort of plot that these scientists are actually going up to a base built by the Americans on the moon, and that this is all being kept secret, and they're conducting experiments on the moon in this new kind of moon base. So it starts out as a sort of disappearing scientist story, and it becomes something much more science fictional, and it's all done in a very sort of po-faced style of a 1970s TV documentary. You can spot the actors these days, you can spot the character actors, but for its time it's very well done. It's very amusing, and I love the effort that's gone into it. So do catch this if you can. Okay, thanks very much. If you watch any of those, please let me know in the comments below, and like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much.